Hello. Before we start the show, I'd just like to send out a quick apology to all our avid listeners. We've been having some technical issues with the recording of the 10 Forward podcast recently, and we've lost a couple of shows. Hopefully we can re-record one of them and get back on track. In the meantime, here is a bonus episode that we weren't expecting to record, but thankfully to Mr. James Roberts, he came up with the idea of a Destination Star Trek review show. This is also a special show in that I have combined the audio with some video and some photographs, and it will be placed on YouTube. Please follow the link in the show notes and have a watch of the show. Thanks very much for downloading and listening, and on with the show.
You're listening to the TrekMate Family Network.
I was listening to you today on Delta Quadrant.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have just done Delta Quadrant, and I actually don't really listen to the show, and by don't really, unfortunately, it means not at all. And it's not because of anything wrong with the show. I've just never got round to hooking myself in.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard you on the Pathfinder.
Yes.
And you were mentioning that you're heading over to Star Trek London, and that you were going to get yourself a photo of Troy with Riker.
Yes.
And of course, Riker never showed up.
That's right. What a real pain. Well, it was disappointing when it was announced. However, I do not regret it at all because Colm Meaney was just as good. And
oh, yeah, of course, because Colm Meaney came in as Frakes' replacement.
That's right. And I think that was I was really pleased with that. He is one of my favourite characters in the Deep Space Nine. Well, he's my favourite character in the Deep Space Nine series, and also TNG. So yeah, it was good, and it was. I think overall I was really pleased with his talk and with his. When I met him, even though it was 7 seconds or whatever it was, that's he created a good impression. So very very professional.
Okay, I'm about to ask. So did you go to his talk?
I did.
Okay. We should probably record this.
I think we should start the podcast, really, shouldn't we?
Security to 1040 immediately.
Welcome to the 10 Forward Podcast, a taste of Trek with a different flavor.
If you wanted to be alone, you would stay in your quarters. The only reason to come here is to be amongst people. Who are you? My name is Guinan. I tend bar, and I listen. You heard anything interesting?
So pull up a chair and let's have a chat. Here in 10 Forward.
10 Forward is a designated shelter area. Relax.
An ale for me. And for my officers, impact. Ales for everyone. Here's to the finest crew in Starfleet.
Hello and welcome to 10 Forward. Pull up a chair and let's talk Destination Star Trek. Yes, it's that time of the year again where all the nerds and all the geeks get together and hang out and enjoy themselves. I had an absolutely wonderful time. I met loads and loads of people from the TrekMate podcast, including one Mr. James Roberts, and he is with me today to share his experience of Destination Star Trek. Hello, James.
Hi, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Today, I have recorded Delta. I'm going to record Battle Bridge later on this evening, and I'm recording with you. And I recorded Battle Bridge yesterday as well. So I've been 4 podcasts within the last 24 hours.
Oh my goodness, that's ridiculous. I'm doing 2 today. I'm doing this one, and then later on we're doing the book club for the another 10 Forward episode. So yeah, it's a busy old weekend for us then.
Yep, and obviously coming off of the weekend that we've just had, right? It's been pretty much wall-to-wall Trek for the last couple of weeks.
Yes, that's right. But first of all, I have to put out a quick apology for all our avid 10 Forward listeners. Sina has had a little bit of a problem recording some of the shows recently. The Skype recorder has not been working correctly, and she's lost a couple of shows, which is a great shame because one of them was quite an important one. hopefully she can re-record that one with the people involved. But we have had some technical issues, therefore we have lost. We thought we'd lost a couple of shows. However, this one is now an extra bonus one, so we might have only just lost the one. It depends on how the schedule runs. So apologies for that. We're hoping to sort things out again, and we should be back on track soon. So in the meantime, Destination Star Trek. James, what was your overall impressions of the whole weekend?
Okay, I've been putting some comments up on the forum actually. Kind of generally a bit of a log and whatnot. But my overall impressions was fantastic. I thought it was really, really good. I had a really good time. I ended up, meeting a lot of friends there. Also took the family along on Sunday. It all really worked very nicely. I think I've got comments on almost every aspect of the convention, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But overall, I thought it was very, very good, and certainly much better orchestrated than the last time when we went in 2012.
Yes, that's right. Because you were at the last one, weren't you? So how did it compare? Did they learn any lessons from any mistakes that they'd made from the original one?
Well, actually, I think the biggest difference that by the way, there were differences, and there were positive and bad differences on both sides. There are things they could control and there are things that they couldn't. Now, last time round, we had the 5 captains, and as a result, that was very much like a centerpiece. I think that we were slightly lacking that kind of centerpiece this time. But at the end of the day, you can't reproduce it year on year on year on year to have all the 5 captains. So that was a slight letdown. They tried their best with what they tried to do in terms of reunion of the TNG cast, although it's unfortunate that Jonathan Frakes dropped out. But if you think about it on the logistics sides, the stuff they can control, the queuing I think was much better this time. It looked like there were far fewer people there, although I don't think it was to do with there being fewer people. I think it was just that it was orchestrated a lot better. So the layout of the show was a lot better. The crunch points that used to exist didn't exist this time. As a result, it felt a lot less claustrophobic and just a lot easier to get around. And then certainly I'm going to give a big thumbs up to the secondary stages where they had the talks that were free. They were much better implemented this time. So you could get to see people like, I saw LeVar Burton and Gates McFadden speak, and we saw Susie Plackton speak, and you could see a lot of people there. And it was last time they tried to do this kind of free ticketing thing, and it just didn't really work. Whereas this time it was a much better organized affair.
Yes, that's something I noticed. I mean, I've not been to any of the destination Star Treks at all, so. The previous convention I went to was in 95 and 96, which was the 30th anniversary, and it was a totally different setup. It was at the Albert Hall. This, however, when I went in, I was a bit sort of disappointed when I went in. The first thing I saw was a great big room, and I thought, this is not what I was expecting. But the way it was laid out, there was plenty of space in between everywhere, so you could quite easily walk around and get to where you want to go, and especially on the Friday. The Friday was very, very quiet, which I didn't realise until I came in on the Saturday and realised how busy it was. But even on the Saturday, it was still you were still able to move around. You could see the free shows quite easily, and the queuing system I thought was really, really good, because although there were big queues, they were obviously flying through them very, very quickly, and so even if you were at the back of a queue waiting for a photograph, you got to the front fairly quickly. I don't know about the autographs, but certainly the photographs I thought were organised very well. So, but I think overall in general, I think the organisation was very, very good. I've heard a lot of positive comments. I've heard a few niggly things that which you always get at these sort of shows. The amount of people you have there, you will have a couple of problems. But I think overall in general, I think it was quite a big success.
And actually, one other thing that I would probably highlight is that. And this is going to sound strange, but last time when I went, I found it difficult for people to take my money and give me kind of Star Trek crap back. And I kind of generally want to go to conventions and buy stuff, Whereas this time, the vendors that were available, there are many more of them, and in my mind, they had better stuff as well. So I ended up walking out with maybe 90, £100 worth of stuff that I didn't expect to buy on the day, and that's kind of what you expect from the convention. So certainly happier on that front. I think it was slightly, that was slightly lacking on the first on the first Star Trek London that they did last 2 years ago.
Right. So when did you first come to the convention? Was it Friday morning? You saw the showing of the Wrath of Khan, I believe.
Actually, yes, that's right. That was one of the things that I really wanted to go for. So, I mean, maybe I'll just lay out what kind of I bought and what I had. So I bought myself they had various 3-day passes. I got myself a Commander's Pass, which entitled me to various bits and pieces. But one thing in particular that I wanted was to go to. There was a showing of Wrath of Khan. Now, I didn't really need to go and see Wrath of Khan, but they had a Q&A session after the film with Nicholas Meyer, obviously the director and writer of Star Trek 2, and of course Star Trek 6 too. So I was very keen to go to that, and that was kind of like an early bird kind of showing. So we got to. We got into Excel relatively early on Friday, and got to that showing, and that was, that was relatively good. I think that the nitpicks are that it wasn't the biggest screen in the world, it wasn't the best acoustics in the world, and it was hard for the noise coming from the convention scene as they were setting up not to travel into the showing. But fundamentally, everyone in the room had seen, Wrath of Khan before, and you're not really there to watch the film. So what was the best thing about it was that Nicholas Meyer came out afterwards and kind of took questions and did a Q&A. And I actually particularly like when I go to conventions to see the people not necessarily the actors, but I like to see the people behind the scenes and get their thoughts on on the product that they put out there. And the one thing that came across with Nicholas Meyer is that I got the impression that he was extremely proud of the film that he had put together. He was very sure in the decisions that he made and how he put that out there, and he was very engaged when people asked questions. So he certainly kind of wanted to be there. It wasn't that they were dragging him over here and he didn't really want to have anything to do with Star Trek anymore. So I actually thought that was really a top-notch experience that they gave us there.
Oh, that's great, because when the actors are brought over here and they don't really want to be here, it can show in the performance, and I suppose that's the same with the directors. But yeah, if he's come over to talk about the film that he's made, then I'm happy that he gave you the experience you wished for.
And he was relatively keen to this Star Trek Into Darkness as well, which always goes down well with me, because people asked him, he said, "Oh, where's the line between a homage and a rip-off," and things like that. But he played it all very well, and just for just to declare myself, I think that Star Trek 2 is the best film out of the Star Trek series. So I'm very much a big fan of Nicholas Meyer, and later on I think it was later on the following day, I managed to get him to sign my copy of Wrath of Khan, and we had a small quick chat, and he was very nice.
Wow, that's pretty good going. So then, once you had finished that, what did you do then?
I had to disappear at that point because I had to go and pick up my daughter from school. So my experience on the Friday was in early in the morning to pick up stuff, watch Wrath of Khan, talk to or have the Q&A with Nicholas Meyer. Then I had to travel 20 miles across London. I had to pick up my girl from school, we had a party, and then I came in for the opening ceremony. But I think, Paul, you've been, while I was doing that drive, you were out meeting the stars.
Well, yes, that's right. I travelled down on the Friday. We didn't go for the early bird tickets or anything like that. We decided to get there for the 2:00 entrance. And I went down with my father and my sister. It was something that I think my dad had always wanted to do. He always wanted to go to a Star Trek convention, but had never really had the opportunity or the time, or they were always in America or whatever. So for his birthday and his Father's Day, we managed to get a couple of present ideas for him, one of which was getting a photograph with the man himself, William Shatner. and of course the woman herself, Miss Jerry Ryan, which he was absolutely, he was really, really looking forward to. I mean, my father's 75. He was obviously a big fan of the original series, and he was the guy who got me and my sister really into Star Trek. So yes, we got there about 2:00. Walked in and really not knowing what to expect, not knowing how things were set out. We had to walk around, looked at a few of the vendors, walked over to the autograph area, which everybody was still queuing for the tickets at that point, so nobody was actually queuing up. So all of the actors were just laid out right in front of us, just waiting for people to go up to them and ask for their autographs. So I sneakily took a little bit of video and a few photographs when nobody was looking, and we were pointing out to my dad, who all the actors were, and because he hasn't really seen them out of uniform or out of makeup, so it was very hard to recognise half of the people there. So I mean, we had Ethan Phillips was there, and Jerry Ryan was getting. Obviously, there was a big queue for her by the time we got there. Susie Plaxton was there, Vaughan Armstrong, James Darren. They were all lined up. It was it was pretty awesome to see him. I think I forgot the guy's name now. The lad who plays Nog, he was there as well.
Aaron Eisenberg.
That's the one. And yeah, it was good to see them all lined up like that. So we saw that, and then we wandered off, and we had a quick walk around the exhibition area, where there was quite a few costumes. We had the statue of. Insert later what the name of the statue was. It was Worf's statue, the one that was in his quarters. It's the two Klingons fighting.
Oh, the two brothers fighting.
Yes.
No, you're not going to get it out.
No, it's I was going to write it down when I was making my notes, and I forgot to do that because I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, Cadus's brother.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. It's something like that. They also had the model of the Tin Man, which was pretty good to see. It's quite a lot smaller than I expected, actually.
Did they have that? I didn't notice.
Yeah,
I didn't see that.
Yeah, it was there. I've got a photograph of it somewhere. In fact, I'll probably show it here at this point. And also they had the shuttle L-Baz from TNG. That was there, full size. Well, not quite full size, but it was a decent sized model of it. And then there's quite a good collection of Star Trek figurines that didn't look anything like any of the characters, but it wasn't too bad. But we also had, as we were walking around, Larry Nemeczek was on stage giving one of his talks, and I thought I must remember to get up to this guy, because I hadn't actually at that time brought my book with me. It was the Star Trek Companion, and it's the blue one, which is here, and I wanted him to sign it, but I hadn't brought it on the Friday. I was waiting. I was thinking I was going to see him on the Saturday, so I made a mental note to have a word with him about that. There was some. As we were walking around, you could see into some of the other photograph areas, and I think it was photograph area C. There was a lot of people outside, and we were sort of looking around to see who was in there, and it was Nichelle Nichols. And I was just trying to get a photograph of it, but obviously there's just too many people in the way. But sat next to her and talking to her was Marina Sirtis, and I thought, now that was a photograph that would have been really nice to get, but I just couldn't quite sneak in. We went round at the corner to where the Borg alcoves were set up, and Jerry Ryan was there having a picture taken, but I managed to sneakily get a little bit of a video of her and somebody's backside, because I had my camera quite low down.
So you mentioned you got Jerry Ryan. I mean, this is just Jerry Ryan in...
not in her Borg costume, no.
Not in any costume.
Just as she was.
In civvies.
Yeah, but anyway, so we managed to get my dad over to the William Shatner photograph opportunity. Like I say, he got into the queue, and I thought, wow, we're right at the back here. This is a huge queue. 20 minutes later, he's had his photograph taken. I thought it was an incredible speed that they got through them. I mean, I timed it about 1 every 10 seconds, which is quite a speed to go through. So you don't really get much chance to say anything to him or anything. And my sister was the same. She went in and got her photograph taken as well.
Now William Shatner's known to be a bit prickly and stuff.
He can be.
What was your experience with him?
I didn't get to see him, but my dad and my sister were really pleased. I mean, they're big fans of his, and we've always liked him. We know he's a bit of a character, but we've always been big fans of William Shatner and Captain Kirk. There is a vague likeness to my dad when they were both the same age, which is why we always liked him. But as far as I'm aware, my dad and my sister just went up, said hello. He said, "How are you?" Whatever. Quick photograph. Thanks for coming, and that was it. And out. You can't touch him. You can't put your hands around him. Obviously. We were talking to what
you could try.
You could try. Well, one person we were talking to in the queue said that he met William Shatner a few years ago, and he walked into the photo area, didn't know anything about the protocol or etiquette or whatever. He walked straight up to him. They went to take the photograph. He put his arm around him, and Shatner jumped a mile. So, which made him jump. So they both had this photograph of the two of them with like shocked expressions on their face. Ah! So William Shatner looked at it and said, "No, take another one." He didn't quite get that one, so he had to take it again. Which he apologised for touching him, but he wasn't expecting him obviously to put his arm around him, and you just don't do that with William Shatner. But yeah, I mean he was professional. He said hello, just made eye contact as you walked in. And that was it really. I mean, you can't really expect more from him than that really. The amount of people he's got to get through. And then after that, or not long after that, we went back in to get Jeri Ryan's photograph with my dad, and that was good because you could see he was really, really excited, and he was really couldn't wait to see her. And he went in, had the photograph, came out. Or when he came out, I've got a bit of video of it, and I'll put that on YouTube somewhere. His face was amazing. When he came out of there, he was grinning, he was bouncing all over the place. And he only met her for like I say, 10 seconds, and that was it. But it was enough to really. It gave me such a lift to see him do that, because it's like I say, he's 75. He's probably not going to go to another convention. So that was his only opportunity he would get to see her, and he was well made up. And there really was a good photograph as well.
I mean, I have to say, I didn't meet Jeri Ryan, but I went to her Q&A or one of her talks later on, much later on Sunday, and then I saw her also performing on other bits and pieces throughout the weekend. I thought that she was on very good form, and I think that she was very courteous to everyone, and I think that she was excited and interested to be there. I got the impression that she was, that she actually liked being there. And from what I've read, by the way, is that she's had issues around stalkers, and she's not really been on the circuit that much recently because of problems. So, I mean, certainly, really good thumbs up for her part for turning up and for just being so great the whole weekend.
Yes, every interview I've seen with her, all the off-the-cuff ones that people get at conventions, or just very quick. Can I have a quick word? And that was it. She's always very bubbly and bouncy and very pleased to answer any questions. I think she sort of thrives on that side of the attention that you get. The stalking issue would explain why she had that 7-foot gorilla next to her.
Yes,
he was a tall man. Not wide, but tall, and followed her everywhere. But when she was walking through the centre, the exhibition centre, he was alongside her. She was really, her face was all smiles and really, happy, and you could see that she was genuinely happy to be there and do what she was doing. Very professional, but also very natural. And I think the same thing goes for Marina Sirtis as well. She was, again, very professional, but she's always on form. She's always very bubbly, especially in the London conventions, I think, because she's obviously she's back home again, and she feels a bit more relaxed, and that was the experience I got. But that was another day. So so after that, basically, we were on our way out then, and my dad said, "Okay, it's time to go." So off we went, and the day really was for my dad and my sister, so I didn't have anything booked for that time. But as we were leaving, just right by the exit of all places, was Larry Nemeczek's stall, his little stand, and he was there. So I managed to jump in and very nervously said, "I've never spoken to you before, but I've listened to all of your podcasts," and 20 minutes later, he's still talking. So we had a really good chat. I asked him if he had any of his stellar cartography books with him. He didn't at the time, but he said on the Saturday he would certainly have some available. And I said, oh, can you sign the companion for me if I bring it in tomorrow? He said, absolutely no problem. So that ended the day on a good note. It was very nice to meet him. Really, really nice fella. Obviously trying to sell his wares, but that's what he's there for. I could have spoken all day to him.
No, by the way, I have to say, I do like the fact that there are guys like Larry Nemeczek that surround Trek in a way. I mean, to a certain extent, they do help with the preservation of stuff, whether it's information or views and things like that. So, the project he has it going. So he has those CDs that he's been doing where he kind of interviews people that are, behind the scenes and the writers and so on. And, no one else is doing that at the moment. No one else is, there isn't really a desire for people in the mainstream to get this stuff done. But if you leave it too long, right, these guys are no longer either going to be, either fresh or remember what they've been up to, or, sadly, a lot of them will just drop dead, and eventually that information is lost. And similar thing with the, with the documentary he's doing with the Con of Wrath. I think it's commendable that he's trying to get something down, something official down on record before effectively all of this goes into, ancient history, and then we can't have access to it anymore. Because I think the one thing in particular that I think separates Trek from a lot of the other sci-fi franchises, and even some of the franchises that have been around longer than Trek, like Doctor Who, is how well archived a lot of the stuff is, and how much information there is out there. And I think, although Larry's trying to sell whatever he's trying to sell, he is fundamentally providing and helping to provide an archive of all of this information that people will be able to look back on in many years to come.
That's right. He's doing an amazing job as well. The amount of the stuff that he's selling off, all the personal stuff that he's had, he's collected over the years to do with Star Trek. He's selling that off. I mean, some of the stuff there you just won't get anywhere else. The one-off things, the little props and things that he managed to acquire over the years. It's an amazing. He's just like a one-man band. He's the only continuity that Trek has ever had, I think. I mean, it's bounced around different ownerships, and different companies have different rights to various things, and it's just a mess. But he is the one man that you can go to and get all the information, and he does all the books. The Stellar Cartography books are an amazing book. I mean, this is, what are we now? I mean, 15 years or so after. Well, not even that, is it 10 years since the last Star Trek aired, but the stuff that he's putting together encompasses a 50-year-old television program. It's amazing the work that he's putting out there, and nobody else is, really. So yes, it really is, and it's no wonder they call him Mr. Star Trek, because he is. He's been there and done that. So yeah. So you came in a bit later then. After I'd left, you then came.
Yeah, I think so. So I headed over. I mean, I didn't think I would be able to make it for the opening ceremony, because by this point I've already, driven 40 miles for that day. But I, added another 40 to the clock by coming in for the opening ceremony. Now, 2 years prior, they had. I mean, unless my memory is just completely playing tricks with me, the opening ceremony was the 5 captains being interviewed. So they had, all of the captains up, and it was actually a very nice, very well orchestrated kind of event. This year it was. I mean, frankly, it was not as good, and I think some of it's not their fault. They don't quite have the hook to get people in on. But what they went for instead was, if memory serves, very similar to last time's alternative opening ceremony, whereby they had a master of ceremonies, I suppose, orchestrating and speaking through speaking to all of the guests that are going to be turning up on that day. Over the weekend, that is. So they hired Jonathan Ross to come in, and he did a couple of gags, and he went through the guest list. And he brought people out. He had quick chats to them, and within like 3 minutes or so of each of them coming out, and they went back behind the scenes, and then the next lot arrived. I think overall it was a little bit, it wasn't the greatest event in the world, and in particular, it's if you look at the ticketed price of this thing, it was pretty expensive. So I think I think it's £95 you needed to spend if you weren't going in with one of the weekend passes or the whatever passes they would sell you. But even if you do have a pass, frankly, you're paying for that anyway, because you're paying £300 for a ticket. So I was somewhat disappointed. Don't get me wrong, it's good to see everyone. It's good to see everyone come out and they interact and stuff. But it just it didn't quite feel like it was as tight as perhaps it should be, and as special, I suppose, as it was the last time they did it. I actually personally would have preferred if they had tried to get the TNG reunion session at this point, kind of have it more of a marker. But frankly, then there's nothing really for them to do the following day. So, they had to do something. What they came up with was fine, but I don't think it was certainly worth the money. One thing just to point out on this is that so when I had the 5 captains 2 years ago, and by the way, they're using the same hangars at Excel that they used last time, so it's in the same place. The room was completely packed with the 5 captains, and also the following evening, it was the following evening this year, it was also packed with the TNG reunion talk. When we were there for the opening ceremony, there were plenty of spare seats. There really was. So much so that although I had a commander's pass that gave me access to a certain point in the seating plan, people were able to go much closer to the stage, and actually at that point we even picked up some free William Shatner face masks because there was just swathes of seats in front of us. But yeah, all in all, it was relatively fine. After that closed out, there was technically a party that night. I didn't go to the party that night. The parties from the previous years were pretty horrendous. But that is not true this year, because I went to a party the following day and it was actually very, very good. So perhaps I should have gone to the party, but at this point I was alone and I had been up pretty much all day, so I headed back home and called it a day at that point.
Very good. So I had managed to meet up with some friends who lived in Croydon, just slightly south of London, and by the time there was a bit of a breakdown in communication, but by the time we got there, it was about, because I then met up with my family who had travelled down in the Friday evening. So my wife and my 2 boys, we met in Euston. We then made our way through to Croydon, and basically didn't get there until about I think it was about 11:15 by the time we got there. And then we had a few drinks and we played a little round of cards. Not your normal cards, it was a game. And by the time I got to bed, it was 1:30. And then I had to get up at 7 in the morning to return back to the XL. And I didn't really get that much sleep. I probably had about 3 hours sleep by the time I turned around and came back. It was a horrible, horrible night. Got there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and fortunately I didn't really have to be anywhere until the Colm Meaney talk, and I'd already done the round of the exhibitions and things. So I thought, right, I'll just hang about, have a cup of tea, and whilst I was doing that, I bumped into Michael Clark, John, Roz, and Matt Warwick was there as well. So that was a bonus. Actually meeting people that you've podcasted with or you have listened to podcasts with, it's always pretty good to do that. So after that, I jumped into the Colm Meaney talk, which was absolutely brilliant, really, really good. He's an interesting man, because not only has he done Star Trek, of course, but he's done hundreds of other things, loads and loads of different films. So he's more of a Hollywood star that has actually done a bit of Star Trek, rather than a Star Trek man who's either just done Star Trek and a few other TV programs or whatever, or maybe the odd film here and there. He is a really serious actor, and he's quite happy to talk about Star Trek and his time on the show. He was talking about the different styles of acting you have to do for TV and for film. He was talking about working with a couple of comedy actors who are directors as well, and how they approach their approach to the way they film and the way they do things and how they treat actors. There was a lot of questions. There seemed to be only two nationalities of people in the talk who were asking questions. That was Irish One guy who's ironically called O'Brien, and German, and some of the. I mean, I've got all the sympathy with the German guys. They have to speak in English, and sometimes their English isn't quite good, and they're trying to get the point across, but they don't really have the right words. You think, well, why on earth are you asking a question in English if it's not your second language? And some of the questions were a little bit. But in general, most of the questions are really good, and a lot of them weren't even Star Trek based. They were more about what are you doing now, how what is your approach to acting and all this. There's some really intelligent questions, and some great replies as well. So straight after that, I jumped out of there and straight into the Colm Meaney photograph, which I managed to get the man himself. I'll just hold that up to the video camera. There you go, and there it is there. And yes, he is as big as he looks. It is ridiculous.
Because Paul, you're 6'3", right?
That's right. He must be about 8'4". So I am actually a lot lower than that. I am 5'4" in high heels, right? 5'3" probably is nearer what I am nowadays. Not only is Colm Meaney a good, I don't know, what's that, about 8 to 10 inches taller than me, which is fair enough. He's so big. He is wide. He put his hand out to shake my hand. I took his hand and my hand just disappeared. I haven't got small hands by any means, but he's a big Irish guy. He is a typical navvy, a builder, or a farmer or something like that type of man. His head is twice the size of mine. It's ridiculous. When you look at the picture, he's a big, wide man. I mean, I've got a 36-inch chest. This guy's twice the width. So, but from when I walked in. Oh, in fact, before I walked in, there was a gentleman in front of me who had two young kids, two young girls. One he was carrying, the other was walking. And straight away, Colm Meaney, he must have spent about 30 seconds with them. Now, bearing in mind, most people were getting 10 seconds per photograph or whatever. He bent down, he said, "Hello, what's your name?" And he was really engaged with the girls. Absolutely loved talking to them. Said, is obviously welcomed the fella, and they then went off. And I thought that was great. He didn't have to do that at all. He could have just said, "All right, stand there, take the photo, and off you go." Came to me, I shook his hand, eye contact all the way through. I said, he said, "Oh, welcome to the Destination Star Trek." I said, "Thanks very much." I said, "I loved your talk. It was really, really good." He said, "Oh, thank you very much." We had the photograph taken. I was about to walk off, and he said, "Thanks very much for coming, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day." Oh, thank you. I wasn't expecting him to say anything, because this is the first time I've ever had a photograph with anybody like this, and I wasn't expecting any more conversation other than the hello, thank you, and off you go. So yeah, just those extra couple of seconds, really, and again, eye contact all the way through. So professional. He knows what he's doing. I don't. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So. After that, I ran over to see if Larry Nemeczek had got his book, his stellar cartography book, because I wanted to buy one and get him to sign it. He wasn't quite ready for that, so he said come back a bit later. So I thought, right, okay, what's on next? Oh yes, we have the Trek trivia quiz with Mr. Mark Stamper. So ran over there to see, just about got there in time to see him get up on stage, and obviously. Paul Finch and Emma, Kirsty was there as well, and Adam and Tanya, they were all hanging around, so I managed to meet up with them. Finally got to meet these guys, because I've only ever spoken to them over the internet, never actually had a chance or an opportunity to meet up with them. So it was absolutely fantastic to meet them. Also, Colin Higgins was there with his better half, and managed to, again, I send a quick hello to him before he disappeared off. And we got on with the quiz. Now, some of you may have heard the questions on Mark Stamper's podcast that he put out. I answered 4 questions out of, I think it was it 12 or so? I think he asked.
Yeah, 12.
And I think I only got one of them right. So a little bit embarrassing, but it was the intermediate questions. I'd hate to have tried to answer the hard questions. I think I should have stuck with the Trekkie girls and their easy ones.
Now, I didn't attend. I wasn't here for this bit because I was doing other stuff that morning. But I happened to be nearby when they started asking the hard questions the following day, and there were a bunch of Star Trek fans behind me. In particular, like a middle-aged woman was there. And I think that it was the first question that Mark asked on the hard set, and it was something like name the disease that, or the illness that Roxana Troy had that made her project her emotions onto other people, or whatever it was. So from that DS9 episode, and the woman behind me said, "Well, that's just ridiculous," and then walked off. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of on her side.
Yes.
But I think in the end, on the hard questions, it was like, I think the person that finished second had like 2 out of 12 or 3 out of 12, something like that. They were pretty hard.
They were pretty hard, and even the intermediate ones, I knew the question. I knew what episode the question may have been relating to, or I knew the scene, or I knew the actual episode, but I just couldn't answer the question. I mean, it was horrible. Embarrassing. So I didn't show anybody my answers sheet at all. But yes, it was a really good quiz anyway. Yeah, and it was well done. And they a bit chaotic with the pencils and the paper, but that was fine. I mean, it was all done in plenty of time, so it wasn't really an issue. But whilst they were there, Simon and Laura Foster turned up as well. And Laura was dressed as the human Tribble. She had a Tribble costume on, which was it took some making. That it was a really good costume, but must have been blooming hot to wear. She was dressed up as a big fur ball.
Now, actually, you've reminded me because at 8:30 on the Saturday there was supposed to be the attempt at the world record of the largest number of people in a single place dressed up as Star Trek characters. And I don't think they didn't break the record again this year, but I assume that's the reason why Laura was dressed as a Tribble. But I think it's absolutely insane for this to have taken place at 8:30 in the morning, because I wasn't even in the convention hall until around 11:30 or so. And then the people that went out to the parties the night before, I don't think they would have been in. So, I'm surprised that they didn't do this like last thing on the Saturday, or midday on the Sunday, or something like that. Something a little bit easier for everyone to get to.
Yes, you're right, and it did actually cause a little bit of chaos, because what I was doing is I was sat outside waiting for the queues to die down at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then wandered in just as they emptied that hall of all the people in the uniforms. So I came in, and to the right of me there was just thousands of people, well, probably 8,000 people, were coming out into the convention centre at the same time. I thought, well, that was just a joke, because now you've just created a second entrance. You've had one entrance with people going in, and then a second entrance with 1,000 people going in, coming in from the side door. So it was a bit crowded and a bit packed, because people would come out and then slow down to start to look at whatever was there in front of them, and of course the people behind couldn't move forward, and it was just a bottleneck. So it was a bit strange to do it at that time of the morning. Yeah, you're right. You should have done it at sort of lunchtime or around then, when there's more people in, people who've just arrived, or people who are just not far from leaving. So yeah, okay. But there you go. That's the way they want to do it. So I wandered over to Larry Nemeczek again to see whether he got his book, and he said, no, come back at 4:30 after my talk, we'll get it signed then. So I thought, great, okay. So I wandered over to see his talk and bumped into, James Roberts and Paula.
Yes, so I had so actually, I mean, I'd been in two minds to a certain extent about turning up to the convention. Not necessarily because I didn't want to go. I did want to go, but I remember the last time, and I don't know how you felt about this, Paul, although you probably were slightly buffered by the fact that you went with your dad and your sister and so on. But I didn't know what to expect last time. You hit the convention hall and it's just, 5,000 people or whatever it is there, and it's slightly shell-shocking. And I remember putting out words to the effect of that over Twitter, and I think that Paula got back to me and said had similar issues. Now obviously she's in a much more vulnerable position than I am, but at that point we kind of agreed, well, why don't we meet up together on the Saturday? I think that's the day that she was going to be coming in, and then we'd go in together, and it's going to be pretty good. So I ended up, I met her as she got her train into London. She was the only person to step off the train in a Star Trek uniform, which I think is only because you got a relatively late train. I suspect most of the hardcore Trekkies would have been in earlier on in the morning. Anyway, so I picked her up there, and we kind of wandered over to the convention hall. Now, I didn't have anything really on the schedule that day until kind of into the end of the day, so the party and the TNG reunion, and neither did she. So we kind of went around. We met up with Twitter friends, I suppose. She seemed to know a lot more people than I did. We went to we heard parts of the talk with Michael Dorn and Marina Sirtis on the secondary stage. And then we managed to get her, up close and personal with LeVar Burton and Gates McFadden when they came out for their session, and that was good. They were actually, I thought they were very good, and they answered a lot, questions well, and they were, they were everything that you wanted them to be, and so they were enthusiastic, and you didn't have to pay. You just sit down and you listen to them give their opinion about what their characters and their journey through Trek, which was great. We went, we basically spent most of the morning or most of the afternoon like having a bit of a wander around, meeting up with people. We ran into actually something I do have to say. I think there were pretty good cosplayers this year. We ran into a guy that had come over that was dressed in a Klingon makeup, and what he pointed out to us is that on site they actually had guys that were prepared to make you up as a Klingon for, I think it was £55 or so, what he was charged. So this is like the the Klingon ridges and the makeup, the fake eyebrows and the wig, and all sorts to get yourself looking pretty darn close to a Klingon. And considering how much what he said he paid for it, which was £55, it was actually very good quality. So it was very good to have that on site, because I know that on previous years they hadn't done anything like that. So that was good. We basically just met friends, went to various talks, and I think we ran into you as we went to the Larry Nemeczek talk, I think.
That's right, yes. Although I think we'd had a brief meeting earlier on. We went to the Larry Nemeczek talk, and rather conveniently, of course, got to the front because obviously with Paula being there, we could blag the fact that we were both carers, and we managed to get to the front. So that was good. Sat right in front of the poor old Larry, who looked down at me and went, "Oh God, he's here again."
At this point, he must have thought you were stalking him.
I did say that on Twitter. I said, I hope Larry doesn't think I'm stalking him, but I just want a book. So, so anyway, yeah. So we had the talk, and that was really good. It was a little. It was more of an overview, a summary of what he's been doing and what he does for a living, rather than the in-depth talk, which I think he might have given the next day. I have seen his talk previous, where he's had loads and loads of slides of behind-the-scenes stuff and the things he's been doing. But this was more of a summary. But it was good to see him anyway. And it was also good to see Paula, because I've never really met Paula before. I've spoken to her obviously on podcasts, tweeted her loads of times. But she looked pretty good in a uniform. You see some people, there were a lot of people rather, that maybe were being a little bit ambitious on the size of the shirts that they were wearing, and not quite looking. More like Shatner in his later years than, shall we say, without the corset. Paula, however, suited that uniform down to the ground, and with the it was a yellow engineer's costume from I think it was the Voyager style, and she looked really good in it. But also her hairstyle was very reminiscent of B'Elanna's, and I said to her, if she just had a Cornish pasty shoved on her head, she would pass as B'Elanna. She could have quite easily gone into one of the costume competitions. But yeah, it was good to see her. And once we'd finished the talk, we then went over to Larry Nemeczek's table. He did have his stellar cartography books there. He very graciously signed it. Signed also my Blue Companion book. Whilst I'm trying to think whether it was at that point, James, because I think you were there with me, weren't you?
Yeah, I was.
You were buying the book as well. Were you there when Max Grudenchek walked up?
No, I didn't see him.
Right, it must have been one of my previous attempts to get the book.
There were so many.
There were so many, 3 times. I was stood there, and whilst I was stood there, and there was a guy next to me who was talking at Larry Nemeczek as opposed to Larry Nemeczek. This guy dressed as a Ferengi turns up, and I sort of glanced across and thought, wow, that's a pretty good costume. He's done quite a good job there. So Larry starts talking to him, and then as the Ferengi walks off, he said, "Oh, Max, quick, this guy wants a photograph." I thought, Jesus, that's Max Kredenchek. He's just walked up, and what he was doing is he was basically having a quick chat with Larry about something, and then he walked away, and he was walking around the show freely and letting people have their photographs taken with him and saying hello to people, and I thought that was absolutely amazing. I mean, the guy doesn't have to do that. He could quite easily charge 15, 20, 30 quid per photograph. Over by the stalls, or when he's doing his autographs. But no, he'd obviously got dressed up. I know it was part of the show that he was going to get dressed up and have photographs taken. But he was just walking around quite happily, quite happy to give his time and his face to people who wanted to take the pictures. However, I had heard as he walked off, the guy that had been talking to Larry Nemeczek said, "Oh." Max Kredenchek is staying in the same hotel as us, and apparently he got up for breakfast, went downstairs to get his breakfast. When he came back up, the cleaning maids had been in and cleaned everything off his bedside table, including his Ferengi teeth. Now, these are the original teeth that he had in DS9, and they'd thrown them away. They'd binned them. So he was actually walking around the show with his ordinary teeth and having photographs taken. But I didn't hear the full story as to whether he actually got them back or not.
Wow, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
But well, you don't want to lose your teeth.
Well, it's one thing to lose your own teeth. That's fair dues. You can always get a new pair, but to lose the original Ferengi teeth, unless you see them on eBay.
I mean, I have to say, I really. Okay, whenever I go to conventions, and let me just put it on the table as to what kind of guy I am. I'm not usually that interested in things like photo shoots. It's just not anything that particularly interests me. But I really do like it when the actors make the effort to get dressed up and they give you kind of like a particular kind of a proper experience. And last time they had the Klingons, they had Gowron and Martok getting dressed up, and I know this time they had. I think Kadar was dressed up, and also Roman Nog were dressed up, and I actually always like that they're willing to go that extra effort, and obviously charge you that extra fee. But anyway, I think it's fun stuff that you can do, and it's realistically, I think that's I've had photo shoots before, but it's always been with guys in makeup, and that's the stuff that I get a kick out of.
Yes, that's right. I mean, I've the only other it wasn't really a convention. It was more of a group of people getting together. There was a Star Wars mini convention, should we say, in our local, one of our local. It's called Spaceport. It's over in Wallasey. If anybody's ever up in the Merseyside area, get yourself over there. It's a nice little place. A couple of hours, you'll see most of it. But they had all the stormtroopers there. They had a lot of the actors there, and we're talking from Star Wars. We were talking. Chewbacca was there. I've forgotten this guy's name now. Peter Mayhew, and a couple of the, for want of a better word, shorter people who played the Ewoks, but also one of the snow. What were they called? Blimey, snow speeders. One of the pilots from there, he was there. So they were also like lower down cast members, except for Peter Mayhew. Now everybody else was charging for their photographs. So you go up, you would literally hand over your money there and then to the guy himself. He would then put it in his little money box and say, right, okay, photograph, here's your autograph, and off you go. Now Peter Mayhew was sat there. Well, he wasn't in the best of health then. He's not doing so well now, but. He looks every inch Chewbacca without the blooming costume.
He does.
So, and he was quite happy to pose with my two boys and have the photograph taken and didn't charge anything. And I thought it was a bit. The feeling when I walked away, I thought, oh, I didn't like that. The fact that you had to go and give the guy himself the money he would then put it away in his little money box, and then he'd say, right, okay, now you can have the photograph. I thought that was a bit poor. To buy tickets, then walk up and have your photograph taken is a better way of doing things. You don't see that money being handed over, and it doesn't feel as though you've actually, paid anything. You feel as though you've got a ticket to do this. So the fact that some people will, like you say, go that extra mile and have their photograph taken free of charge is great. And all respect to Max Grudenchek, and I know. He's been interviewed with the TrackMate guys, which is a video that's still available if you go onto onto YouTube. I think it's still there. These guys will quite happily, talk for hours about anything, and it really does make a big difference to your experience and how you come away feeling really pleased that you've spoken to these guys and they've taken that bit of time to speak to you, rather than just going in, having your photograph taken, and go back out again. So yeah, it was good. So that was pretty much my day, really. I think I once I finished. Oh, sorry, no, beg your pardon. Once I finished with Larry and yourself, I then had lunch with the TrackMate crew. We all went off to a little restaurant around the corner, a little pub restaurant around the corner. Had a very nice meal. When we came back, I had the photograph taken with Marina Sirtis, and there she is. And I finally found out that she is the same height as me. I always thought she was, but she had high heels on, so she looks an inch taller than me. But she is the same height, and she was. When I first saw her from a distance, I thought, oh my God, she's had some work done. And I thought if she smiles any wider, she'll crack something. But when he got close up to her, I thought, no, she's looking pretty good. She's looking pretty good. Had the photograph taken, and in the photograph, she looks absolutely stunning. So I was most happy to have that photograph taken. That was the one I was looking forward to. And again, she was exactly the same. Walked up. She didn't shake my hand, but she was, again, the eye contact was there right the way through. I said, she said, what did you say? She said, oh, hello, how are you? I said, oh, absolutely fine, thank you, how are you? She said, oh, I'm absolutely fine, thank you. We turned, had the photograph taken, and again, but she put her arm around me, and I put my arm around her. There's no way she's going to get away with that. And had the photograph taken. She said, thank you very much for coming, and hope you have a nice day. I said, thank you very much, and wandered off. And again, she was very professional. She was very smiley and happy, and bearing in mind, both her and Colin Meaney, I was at the back of the queue, so it was a good 20 minutes of constantly smiling, photographs, how are you, nice to meet you. It was as though I was at the beginning of the queue. It was that sort of welcome that you got. There was no difference in being first to last, and that is the sign of a true professional at work. And you would hope so for the money you paid, really, but some people have had that experience where they don't get a good rapport with the people in 10 seconds. So once we finish that,
just before we move off of Marina Sirtis, I mean, a lot of people claim that Troy's accent started out as a foreign accent and then gradually morphed into Marina Sirtis's own accent, but from the weekend, I mean, unless that's continued, I mean, she sounds nothing like Troy sounds like.
No,
she's got a much thicker accent.
Exactly. I've seen her in 1995, and she came on stage and she was going on about how Tottenham. She's a big Tottenham Hotspur fan, I believe.
Yeah, she brought that up in the opening ceremony as well and got booed for it.
Yes, well, yeah. You do, but I mean, it's all good-natured stuff. But I mean, she's got that accent. That is her natural accent. She's a Londoner. So yes, but when I met her, she obviously you change, your accent changes as you speak to people. My accent at the moment, although I'm speaking probably a little bit quicker now that I'm all excited, and obviously I know you quite well, so it's not too bad. But when I don't know somebody, I will speak slower and a bit more concise, and my accent drops away. Once I start to speak quickly and really get into it, then the Liverpudlian accent will come out a little bit more. And that's what you'll find with Marina Sirtis. When she meets you as for the photograph, or for maybe just to have an autograph or whatever, she will speak a little bit clearer and a little bit more. I'm trying not to say posher, really. I don't mean posher in that respect, but her accent will change. When she gets up on stage and she gets excited, then the London accent does come out. So So yes, but when she spoke to me, she was. I didn't notice any accent, to be honest. She didn't really say that much to me that you could find an accent in it. But I was, yes, I melted when I stood next to her. I think I got a bigger grin on my face for that one than I have on Colm-Meaney's. But there you go. She had her arm around my shoulders. I haven't washed that shoulder yet.
I don't know. Have you seen Mark Stamper's picture of the one that she has with Jerry Ryan?
Okay.
Because he tweeted that, and he's kind of not really got much of a smile on his face, and Jerry has got a huge smile on her face. And I think I replied to it saying, "It looks like she's more excited to meet you than you are to meet her."
Yes. Yeah, that's very much like the Jerry Ryan photograph with my dad. When you look at the way he's positioned, you say, "Where have you got your hands?" But no, Jerry Ryan's another one. When she smiles, and again you can see it with Marina Sirtis, they both smile with their eyes, so instantly you know you've got a really, it is a genuine smile. It's not just something they've, smile with the mouth and go, yeah, next. There's, especially with Jerry Ryan, every picture I've seen of her, it looks like a genuine, happy to be there smile, which when you consider that this is going to go up on my wall for the next 20, 30 years, you want a good fit picture. You don't want some horrible, pretty bad, poor quality smile. So yes, it's always good when they do that. So that was pretty much my experience, because I then went home and that was it. End of day. So what did you do anything in the Saturday evening, or you obviously had Paula with you up to a point?
Yes, no. So actually, a couple of things. Let me just roll through them quickly. We went up for a signature from James Darren. Well, Paula did. She wanted for him to sign a CD that she brought along. And actually, I think that I have to say, I think he's kind of like a top class man. I think the way that he treated everyone was great, and I think that he took his time with Paula in particular. So, I think it's always good to see, good to see how people react under those circumstances. So, when you don't have a huge amount of time with everyone, he was able to make people feel, special, and take time out of, his schedule to just allow things to go in a nicer way. I didn't really, there wasn't anything huge going on until, so in the latter part of the day, there was going to be the TNG reunion talk. Now, I had bought myself a ticket for this, £65 that I paid. And what this was going to be, it was going to be the TNG cast in a roundtable discussion with William Shatner. And William Shatner was kind of like leading it, or kind of orchestrating it from a host's point of view. So there are two things about this. One is that I was with Paula, so we had to find a way of getting Paula in. And then I had also met up with the TrekMate guys, and they all had bloggers passes that was apparently allowing them to get into this thing for free. But alas, I had to pay. But what we did manage to do, we managed to smuggle Paula in. Now, I don't know if this should really go down on record, but for whatever reason, they were not prepared to turn a blind woman away as she was being dragged into the auditorium without a ticket. I think technically I should have been allowed to be there just because I was her helper. But whichever way you cut it, we managed to get two people in on one ticket, which was actually I was genuinely pleased with myself at that, to be honest. So we went there, and it was scheduled for about an hour and a half, or maybe even longer than that. And it was it was pretty good. Now, it's been reported that before anyone came up, they had a guy go up on stage, and so a guy proposed to his boyfriend, live on stage, and they had a bit of a clip reel and stuff, and that was relatively nice and sweet. So that's good. We started, as a result, we started late, and I think we've started late anyway, but we managed to finish dead on time, as these things go. So the panel itself, first of all, I think it was good. It was always good. It's good to hear people talk. It's good to how they interact. I think that it's been mentioned before that Marina Sirtis was quote unquote drunk. Although I don't think she was drunk, I think it's just that her personality is somewhat different than the other members of the cast. So she's much more at ease, at shouting people down, and and being a bit of a loudmouth. Although, lended a little bit of credence to the argument, they did have wine on the table and that she did get through 3 glasses during the hour and a half. So maybe she was. I don't know.
She didn't arrive drunk, but she certainly left drunk.
I think one unfortunate thing is that I think the panel was too large because they didn't manage to get a lot out of all of them. So LeVar Burton really didn't say a huge amount. Cole Meany said almost nothing. John Delancey was also there as, obviously Q. And he didn't have a huge amount to say. And I think my only criticism, or my main criticism of this, is that I don't think William Shatner was the best person to orchestrate it, because you end up asking William Shatner a question and then I don't think he was aware enough to keep the good questions going and to cut off the bad questions. So, there was a question asked about, and anyone there will recognize it. There was a question there asked about practical jokes that they kind of killed and then went on for another 10 minutes or so killing the same, the same question, and it really wasn't going anywhere fast. Other questions, someone asked, how would you have liked your character to have been killed off? And that was asked of Geordie, and he came up with a very funny answer, and then they kind of moved on straight away. So occasionally you wanted them to do less of what they were doing, and occasionally more. And I just thought that had it been someone other than Shatner, or actually, frankly, had it been a professional person that was a host, whose job it was to get this kind of thing right, I think they would have done a bit better. Also, acoustics weren't the best. I mean, I complained about acoustics in the Wrath of Khan showing, but it was often very difficult for the guys on stage to hear you, which obviously makes it pretty hard to get any two-way communication going. But it was good. Of course, I would have, I was going to be there no matter what, and it was good to see them all, and it's great that they keep turning up to these things. But overall, it was a good experience. A little bit on the expensive side, but hey, Star Trek has a way of taking money out of my pocket. I'm not really going to complain about that. And then, I mean, after the talk, Paula dragged me to the party, the Saturday night party, and what they had there, they had James Darren and Tim Russ were both doing performances. So they, actually, I was actually very, very impressed about how good this was. And I don't even have to say it was good compared to the parties they had last year. I think it was actually good. Tim Russ and James Darren both put on around, an hour-long set each. They got through, 12, a dozen songs, something like that. You were able to get very, very close. You were able to be literally sitting or standing, a meter and a half away from them. And they were very good. I mean, it wasn't, they had backing tracks. There wasn't, there were certain limitations of the venue that didn't allow a full band to be there. But overall, I was actually very impressed. I don't think would be the biggest fan of either of their music styles, but it was very good. And it was good to see them. It was particularly good to see Tuvok with an electric guitar singing, singing his music. It kind of made me want for the writers of Voyager to have perhaps indulged the actor in some slightly different storylines over the years. Excellent.
So a good time was had by all then.
Yes, yeah, and then actually let me to round up my Saturday. Headed back to the train station, waved goodbye to Paula, made sure that she got onto the train and wasn't horribly murdered in London, at least, on the way home. Headed back to the party. This was around midnight or so, where I met up with Mark and Kirsty, Paul and, hey, I'm going to say Paul and Adam, why not? That's the couple. and Tanya and Emma. And we ended up just chatting, and then we went back to their place, and I was kicked out at 4:00 in the morning, at which point I had to drive home. And I had assumed that my family had put out like a missing persons request for me, but no, they thought that I was just still okay and safe.
4:00 in the morning. What were you doing up until 4:00 in the morning?
We were you've seen the forum post. We were discussing string theory, and we actually were discussing string theory.
That's the sad part.
I have to say, people dropped off, and they dropped off in the following order. So just let everyone be aware who the lightweights are. Tanya dropped off first. Now, having said that, Tanya had she had to look beautiful the following day because she had various photo shoots. Now, no one else was going. No one else was in danger of looking beautiful the next day anyway. So she dropped off first. The next, I believe it was Kirsty that dropped off next, although it was then reawoken by Adam as he came down and kicked her in the back. But then Kirsty, I think it was Adam, it was then Emma, it was then Mark, and then finally, last man standing was Paul. So realistically, everyone except Paul there are lightweights.
Well, I think you're right there. I think Paul's pretty good on physics and what have you. I think he's into that sort of thing, isn't he? He knows his way around a good bit of technical knowledge.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So headed out, and then had about a couple of hours sleep before I was woken up in the morning. And at that point, I kind of decided that, hey, why doesn't the entire family head over for the Sunday? So I picked up all 4 kids and the wife and headed back in. And obviously, we didn't have tickets at this point. So actually, one major gripe: you shouldn't be charging full price tickets for 6-year-olds. We had 6-year-olds, and so in order to get in for the children, we had 3 children over the age of 4, which was their cutoff, and it was £30 per day admission. So it's £90 to get 3 kids in, and that is not as cool as it should be.
No, that's right.
But we went in, and actually my Sunday was the day that I had scheduled to do all my stuff, because at this point, I had various talks to go to and whatnot. So I kind of, the kids came in with the wife, and they had a bit of a look around, and they had a look around the museum bit, and had a look around at all the people that were walking around, and looked at the Klingons and whatnot. And I went in to see my talks, and my talks were Nichelle Nichols, and actually this was the best talk of the entire week by far. And the reason why is that so Nichelle was going to be given a talk and about her time on Star Trek, but the really good thing was that now Nichelle Nichols is getting she's getting old, and she's it's hard at the best of times to be able to communicate with everyone in the audience with the acoustics on that evening, but on that weekend. But what she had is that Bob Picardo came with her, and Bob Picardo, and I'm pretty sure it's Bob Picardo just off his own back, he effectively orchestrated the talk. So he had his own questions. He was the guy that communicated with the audience, and basically took control of the session. So in terms of an orchestrator, he was absolutely perfect, and he really brought out the best in Nichelle Nichols. So I thought that was really, really good. And I remember from the opening ceremony that Bob Picardo had only mentioned that he had only just recently met Nichelle Nichols, or they had become friends on the flight over, or some words to that effect. So I was very, it was very good how that was done. So it was, you could easily have this as being the last time you get to see her in the UK, and I'm very glad that it went as well as it did. Later on in the day, I managed to go to talks with Jerry Ryan, and she was on good form. She was on top form, and she's very, very, very keen to engage everyone, and a good performer. And also Cole Meany, who you mentioned already, and again a good, very good performer.
Oh, excellent! So, did you take the kids into the talks, or was it just yourself?
No, so I went in just myself, because unfortunately, if I wanted to take the kids, they would have asked for another 45 quid.
Yes,
which is again, that's a little bit on the expensive side. So the kids stayed out with my wife, and actually, when I was with Nichelle Nichols, I came out afterwards and found the family. And my wife had actually she had taken the kids over to the makeup store, where they were putting on Vulcaneers and Klingon forehead ridges. And she got both my boys made up as, one as a Klingon and one as a Vulcan. And they looked pretty darn good, to be honest. So I've got various photos of the kids in cosplay at aged 6 and 7, respectively. And it's one of them in particular, the Klingon got photoed by TrekMovie.com later on in the day, and that's actually ended up on their website. So I'm happy I'll send over a link to that, and it's actually pretty cool. So, a lot of my wife sold it as face painting, so you can go and get your face painted in Star Trek style. My wife and I and the kids, and with Matt Warwick, we went to see a talk by Susie Plackton where she was, she was commenting at the same time as that her K'Ehleyr makeup was being applied. So they had makeup artists on the stage as she was getting her forehead sorted and her wig and stuff. And after she turned into K'Ehleyr, she did a bit of a spiel and she started talking from beyond the grave, which was a little bit of fun, and the kids enjoyed that. And I think that she in particular was more engaged than your average guest at the show. So I think top marks for her. And I think that she followed this up straight away to go into the photo shoot with various people dressed as Klingons, which was always good as well.
Excellent. Yeah, because I saw her from a distance when she was at the autograph sessions, and because my sister was there at the time, and she said, "Wow, she's got Klingon hair." Her normal hair looked as though it was actually part of the Klingon makeup. It was very, she's obviously kept the full length hair from her Star Trek days.
No, actually, she does have full length hair, but what they ended up having to do, they have to they have to hide that when she gets put into her K'Ehleyr gear. So although she has full length hair, that gets re-tied up really tight, and then she has to put a wig on top of it.
Oh no.
So after that, which must have been, at this point I've not had any sleep, 2 hours sleep the night before, and a 3-day Star Trek bender. I think we're about 700 pounds down, and by the way, I'm not paying for any accommodation or any travel or anything because we live locally. We head back, and I roll into work the following day.
Ouch.
And it was a pretty hard week as well.
Yes, I can imagine. I've seen some of your tweets when you're leaving at all hours of the night during work. So yeah, it must have been hard. Must have been a hard week for you. Wasn't too bad for me. I got home. We got the train back home. Got home about 6 o'clock in the evening. Managed to get something to eat. Went to bed relatively early, and I was up at 5:30 the next morning to get back into work. But managed to do that. And it was back to reality with a bump really after that. So but all in all, it was a really good weekend. One memorable part that I have actually got on video, which I'll put this on YouTube, is we went into the Klingon zone, and there was 3 Klingons, 2 males and a female, and they were all sat there banging their cups on the table and singing and all sorts of things. Three really good actors who really were putting a lot of effort into it. They were wandering around the place, attacking people and talking to them and threatening them and what have you, as Klingons do. And I had my t-shirt on, which was a black t-shirt with the face of Spock on the front of it. And one of these guys spotted it and he pointed to it and he said, "You have
Face of the hated Vulcan. You're wearing, are you one of his clan?
Oh yes.
Him. You with the strange weapon in your hand. Why everybody laugh when I say weapon?
Good word.
This is a scanning device." And there's a woman next to me who's got a tribble in her hand. So of course they all just ran off. Ah! So I turned to her and said, "Thank you very much, you've just saved my life." So it was really, really good. I mean, the three Klingons, the three actors that were playing the Klingons, did a really, really good job all weekend. I think of keeping the people entertained and in character all the time. It was really good. They all came up to me later on and they were patting me on the back and talking to me. So yeah, it was those people added to the overall experience. So it was really good.
No, absolutely. I mean, I echo that, and I also had two of my children kidnapped by those Klingons earlier in the day, and it was lots of good fun.
Well, if they'd known they were going to do that, I would have brought my kids and maybe my missus as well. But it sounds as though we both had a really good time.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was good. And I don't know, what the next convention is. I suspect it's going to be Vegas in 2 years. Because I'm tempted to do that. I'm tempted to leave the kids at home, as to not quadruple the amount of money I'll need to spend in order to get there.
I have to say that your wife must be one of the most what's the word I'm looking for? Accommodating women. I don't know what's the right word on that, but she must put up with a heck of a lot with you disappearing off most of the day at work anyway, and disappearing off to podcasts, and disappearing off to do conventions.
Well, the last couple of weeks have been particularly hard because it has been a lot of work, and then it was basically full-on Trek for a weekend, then rolling into another whole-on work, and then I've had 4 podcasts this weekend. So at this point, I suspect that she's just on her way out, just about to divorce me.
Yes.
We'll see.
I would have been at the divorce stage just after the first convention, to be honest. But no, she must be a very understanding woman. So that's all I can say. But yeah, it's been great talking to you, James. It was great to catch up with you at the convention. And
Yes.
I have to say, all props to you. I think you did a wonderful job with Paula, taking her around, spending the day with her. That's quite a thing to do. And hopefully we'll meet up again another time, and certainly we'll podcast together again, no doubt.
Oh, hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully I'll get on the Battle Bridge again.
Are you scheduled to come on?
I am not at the moment. I need to look at what's coming up on my availability and see where we are. I haven't done that yet.
We actually have, so we're in, so plug. So I'm co-hosting the Battle Bridge podcast that lands, I think, every Friday, something like that. We're going through Next Generation. We are a review episode podcast. We're an episode review podcast, perhaps is better way of phrasing that one. We're currently just at the beginning of season 2, and actually looking out at season 2, we've got more guests than not for the rest of this season, which is quite nice. So slots are filling up relatively quickly, but there's still certainly opportunities for anyone that wishes to come on to discuss their favourite or not so favourite TNG episode. Feel free to drop us a line.
Excellent. I'll certainly look at the schedule and see what's available, and definitely be coming on again.
Actually, having said all this, you were on the one that dropped this morning.
Oh, was that my...
Yes, Elementary Dear Data dropped this morning, and you were on that one.
I was on that one.
If memory serves.
I'll have to have a listen to that. If only to see what mistakes I've made and rectify them for the next time.
Well, yes.
Otherwise, I don't listen to mine. I keep getting these tweets from people saying, "Why did you say this?" I'm thinking, that was 2 weeks ago. I can't remember saying that at all. But anyway, thanks very much for coming on and doing this, James. It was after all pretty much your idea, and I think it saved 10 Forward missing out on 2 shows. I think it's given us maybe a gap of 1, so a nice little bonus episode thrown in there. Thank you very much for that.
All right, my pleasure.
And if you want to get in touch with anybody from the 10 Forward show, if you want to get in touch with Sina, she can be found on Twitter at QueenCatBlue. That's cat spelt with a K. You can get me at FairBob1. If you want to get in touch with the show via Twitter, it's at 10Forward1701, and you can either get Sina or Chris on that. You can email us at trekmate10forward at gmail.com. You can post a comment on the Trekmate forum at forum.trekmatefamily.com, or you can like us on Facebook, and it's Chris who looks after the Facebook page, facebook.com/10forwardpod. And if you like other flavours of Star Trek, we have a podcast to suit all of your needs. Just hop over to the trekmate.org.uk website and take a look at the UK's best Star Trek website. But then I am biased, seeing as I am on one of the podcasts. So once again, thanks very much, James. And come back next week, relax, sit down, pull up a chair. Let's talk Trek. Until then, from me and James, it's good night.
Good night.
And cue music.
Security to 10-4 immediately.
You've been listening to the 10 Forward Podcasts. 10 Forward is a TrekMate podcast.
Well, if you wanted to be alone, you would have stayed in your quarters. The only reason to come here is to be amongst people. Who are you? My name is Guinan. I tend bar, and I listen.
Huh. You heard anything interesting?
For more information, visit trekmate.org.uk. That's trekmate.org.uk.
10 Forward is a designated shelter area. Relax.
An ale for me. And for my officers. In fact, ales for everyone.
He's biting that female.
It's not funny. Pressing lips, it's called kissing.
Here's to the finest crew in Starfleet.